here we go. We're going to start off with your 2022 fantasy football sleeper quarterback style.
Quarterback style. All right. Yeah. Let's start with I know I'm gonna get a lot of hate for this one because he's not attractive, but Carson Wentz, he's a sleeper of mine in fantasy this year. And the reason why is because despite some pretty ugly throws down the stretch last year, he actually was very, very efficient. It was the second best statistical season of his career. He had 27 touchdowns, only 7 interceptions. So his touchdown interception ratio was really, really good. He actually, for comparison, threw more touchdowns than Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray, Derek Carr, Jalen Hurts, some of these guys that finished pretty decently in fantasy. Again, so I'm not expecting him to be a stud, a superstar or anything like that, but he has the tools to actually be a viable, low-end QB1. He threw also for over 3,500 yards. It was a matter of opportunities with Wentz. So during the first 10 games of last year, he averaged 33 attempts per game, passing attempts per game. He had 17 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. In the final 7 games of the Colts season, he averaged only 26 passing attempts per game. He managed to keep the same level of production in the touchdown department, but you got to wonder if he had been afforded, I guess you would say, those extra couple of opportunities in each game down the stretch, would he have had a better fantasy season? He didn't finish number 14 fantasy QB. So here's why I think he's going to get that boost, because with the Colts, they have a really, really viable running game, a great running back, and they're going to be a run-first team. They actually finished towards the bottom of the league in total pass attempts per game and passing efficiency per game. Now, the Commanders, I was going to say football team, but the Commanders on the other hand, they actually finished near the middle of the pack. I do believe that as this year goes, the Commanders will actually just be throwing the ball quite a bit. Don't get me wrong, they have a good run game with Gibson and McKissick. They also drafted a running back, but that's not, a backfield that's got JT in it. So I do believe that they're going to throw the ball in Washington. Wentz is going to be afforded a lot more opportunities to rack up the fantasy points. He's got a very similar supporting cast as far as receivers go, and just overall offensive talent. They're very similar teams, really young on offense, decent offensive lines. They've got young and upcoming receivers and running backs. It's just a matter of opportunities. I think Wentz is going to get those extra opportunities with the Commanders.
I was unsure how I felt, kind of about this, because I think he definitely is a sleeper. As far as fantasy football goes, and it's only because of his inconsistency. Carson Wentz has shown, obviously, in his near MVP season in Philadelphia before he got injured, he can be a top-notch, top-level quarterback, if not elite. But he's also shown that he can make some really dumb decisions at times, like the interception from the end zone last year, that he threw. Different things like that. So I wouldn't be, totally shocked if he has a solid fantasy season. I think that Washington is going to have to throw the ball a lot, because I think they're going to be behind in some games. A couple of years ago, they had, one of the scariest defenses in the NFL. Last year, not so much, and obviously what they're going to look like this year is still to be seen. But I do think either way, I think they're going to be behind in some games, and they're going to have to score points and throw the ball. They do have a pretty solid running game, but I agree with you. I think they're going to be throwing the ball a lot more than Wentz was throwing the ball in Indianapolis, especially when you look at the teams they're going to play. Like, they're going to have to throw the ball against Dallas. They play them twice a year. There's no way around that if you want to keep up with Dallas. Philly can score points. It's not always through the air, but they can score points. You know, they've got some talented guys. They got a quarterback that can move around and run. So they're, you know, he's going to have to throw against them. You know, the Giants, who knows? You know, they might be able to beat them with 10 points, or Danny Dimes might show up and he might have to score 40 points to beat them. So that's really, you know, the unknown in that division. Who knows? Maybe Jimmy Garoppolo's throwing passes for the Giants when week 1 rolls around. We'll see. But yeah, I think that he's definitely a sleeper, and I can see him having a solid season fantasy wise. I don't know if it's going to translate into a lot of wins on the field for the Commanders, though.
I wouldn't necessarily say that either. But you know, if you're looking for a quarterback in the late rounds of a draft, maybe a super flex league or something like that, you know, this Wentz is going to be a good option on a lot of weeks for fantasy football. Definitely will say that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would say, you know, in a league like our family league where we switched this year to where, you know, you got that open flex basically where you can play anybody but a defense. I think that's a viable option to put in there, considering how many points quarterbacks score. So definitely.